to have, we're poised to have a slight net gain of anywhere between 2 to 4 seats. Now, redistricting is not done, and so that number could change and go down somewhat, but at the very least, we're either going to be slightly ahead or we're going to break even, which is well above expectations. In California, for example, we're going to have more Biden districts next year than we do this year. And so that's pretty exciting. We have areas where we have made both Republicans weaker and Democrats stronger. So for example, Republican Mike Garcia's seat is now basically a +11 Biden district. So that is a great opportunity for us to flip. It's the last Republican held district in LA County. We also have a district where Jay Chen is running against Michelle Park Steele. That is a +6 to +7 Biden district. And the district is so different that Michelle Park Steele only represents about 17% of the district. She doesn't even live there. So it's really like an open seat. And so we feel pretty good about flipping that. And because of redistricting, we already caused our favorite Republican, Devin Nunes, to retire. So we already had a victory because of that. And so you actually saw redistricting exceed expectations. The second thing that we see happening is the tremendous energy that we continue to see among Democrats. Their Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee has outraised the Republican counterpart last year, as well as beginning of this year. And so that is actually a pretty darn good sign. So with that, we feel pretty good about our prospects heading into November. And what we see across America is Omicron dropping like a rock. We see rapid decline in cases. In a few weeks, the cases are going to be really quite low. And definitely in a month or two, it's going to be ultra low. And so Democrats have a golden opportunity now to be seen as the party bringing America back to normal again. So with that, happy to answer any questions you may have. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course, yes. And I think there'll be a lot of questions for you. I know that one of the questions, Ted, and I just remember, I think I even texted you, I was so nervous, was on January 6th, when the insurrection happened. There you were, right in the middle of things. Can you kind of share that day? My hands get all anxious when I think of that, but can you share that day with us?
Sure. Some of you have heard me describe it. Some of you have not. So I'll tell you what happened. First of all, most members of Congress were asked not to go to the floor because guess what? We were in the middle of a freaking pandemic. And so they had most of us watch proceedings from TV. So I was in my office in Cannon office building. And about 20 minutes after proceedings start, I hear this loud banging in the hallway. And I go to my chief of staff, Mark Savasco, and I said, "What is that?" He goes, "I don't know." And then the banging gets progressively louder, and then it comes to our door, and there's this, loud thumping on our door. And so Mark opens the door, and this Capitol police officer rushes in and says, "You need to evacuate immediately." So when a Capitol police officer says that, you listen. And we went down 5 flights of stairs. We went into the tunnels into the next building over where he said it was safe. And then I started looking at my phone, and I realized that there was a mob descending on Capitol Hill. It was sort of creepy when another Capitol police officer said, "You should remove your member pin that designates you as a member of the House of Representatives."
Wow.
Which I did. And we eventually made our way to Congressman David Cicilline's office. He graciously let us in and then locked the door. So we were on lockdown. And like many of you, we started watching TV. At some point, it became clear to us that not only was a mob attacking the nation's capital, but that they have been incited by the former president of the United States. And so David and I looked at each other and we basically came to the same conclusion, which is we need to get this man out of there. And so we started drafting the article for impeachment. We worked with Congressman Jamie Raskin remotely, as well as the staffs of each of our 3 offices and the staff of the House Judiciary Committee. We simultaneously also started drafting a letter urging the former president's cabinet to execute the 25th Amendment. And what we wanted to do at that time was, in addition to trying to get the former president out of there, was to have leverage over him. We wanted the former president to know that if he did anything else even crazier in the next 2 weeks prior to January 20th, that Congress could remove him immediately. So part of it was we didn't know how much worse it might get with the former president. So that's another reason we wanted to get the article of impeachment out as soon as possible. And we proceeded to get support for that article of impeachment. I was very proud that early next morning, Congress reconvened and we finished our job of certifying the electoral college results that certified Joe Biden as their rightful winner of the free and fair election. So that was January 6th. I think you're muted, Cara.
Thanks, Ted. Yeah, that's quite something to go through. I mean, something you never thought of, right? You just could not imagine. None of us could imagine us being attacked like this.
So you do strange things sometimes when you're under stress. So my first phone call was to my wife, till I was okay. My second phone call was to my American government high school teacher, who I hadn't spoken to for over 30 years. And he was thrilled to get my call. And I said, you know, this is not what you taught us in class. And we had a lovely discussion. And it was just an interesting thing. I don't know what prompted me, but I just decided to give him a call because I think I was so shocked at what I was watching happening at our nation's capital.
Yeah, that's really interesting when you think that, I think we all can think, all right, what would our second call be? But to whom would our second call be, right? I think there are people that have some questions. I see some in the chat. We had some. One of them says, what are we going to do to get rid of Louis DeJoy and quick? Because what's happening with the vote by mail, and everyone seems to want to get rid of him. What's going on with that?
I think Abraham Lincoln had it right when he said public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. So understand your own power to help shape public sentiment, right into the President of the United States, right into the Speaker, as well as the Majority Leader of the Senate, and right into their postal board. We have put more people on the postal board that I think are inclined to remove Louis DeJoy. I have repeatedly called for him to resign or to be fired. My sense is, I think it could happen this year. We'll see. And yes, the Postal Service has been worse because of his leadership. He has cut significant functions. He I think is looking at imposing austerity in a way that's inconsistent with the mission of the Postal Service. I mean, look, the Post Office and the Postal Service, it is not a business. FedEx is a business, which is why when you mail a letter with FedEx, it costs you $20. With the Postal Service, when you mail a letter, it costs you,
what, 55 cents or something? I don't know. I have all those.
I have these. So you know what? I have these stamps that are like forever stamps.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know how much stamps cost. But anyways, it is well under, right? It's 50 some cents. So whatever that is. And that's the difference, right, between a business and not a business.
Yeah, well, we can see, I think Michelle Sutter here, who's on the call, told me that it takes 5 days sometimes to get Venice to Venice. You just don't even get your mail anymore. It used to be a day, maybe most 2 days across the city, and now you don't even know if it's getting there. It's scary. Well, I hope we can do something about it. What about the Supreme Court? That is a question on everyone's mind, enlarging the Supreme Court. Could it be a reality? I mean, is that a unilateral decision, or do we again need the Senate to block something?
You would need to elect 2 more Democratic US senators
Okay.
this November. Once you, well, okay. So one silver lining of what happened recently is 48 Democratic senators voted to override the filibuster. It was not at all clear that we would get 48 to do that. So that's significant. If you add 2 more to that, then you're going to override the filibuster. And I will guarantee you, any person running in a Democratic primary is now going to have to commit to overriding the filibuster, or else they're not going to get elected. So whatever Democratic senator gets elected would have been on record saying they're going to override the filibuster. And if we can elect 2 more, I think once that happens, then there's lots of different things we could do.
Good, thank you. More of our work, everybody. Our work cut out. Remember how I said our club always supports the senators. That's who we do, and a few certain House people as well, Mr. Congressman Lieu. But yeah, so it's these 2 senators. And you know, something else that's happening, like our president's ratings aren't great, and the press hasn't been that friendly. You know, the press is always hitting on the negative. It just seems to be that's what sells, you know, the news. What actions, though, is Democratic leadership taking to get our accomplishments out to the public? What can we do to really make it big, especially for these midterms?
That's a great question. So I think part of it is related to the pandemic. My colleagues elected me to House leadership, so I'm a co-chair of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. And one of the things I do in my job is I just read a lot of polls. And what the polls show are that the economy and COVID are the 2 main issues on people's minds. And with COVID, I think people are tired and they're frustrated and they're weary, and they want to get back to normal. That's going to happen pretty soon because of, so let me also explain why you're seeing a large decline in case rates. The Centers for Disease Control, I think a couple weeks ago, put out a chart that essentially recognized immunity acquired through infection. And what it actually showed is that, at least with the Delta variant last year, people who got COVID and recovered were somewhat better protected at getting COVID again than if someone had been vaccinated but had never gotten COVID. So what ended up happening with Omicron is not only did we have more people vaccinated since Delta, we also had a whole bunch of people who got COVID who are also now immune. And so when you add the 2 together, the Omicron virus doesn't have a lot of places to go, and then it starts dying out. And that's why you see these huge rapid declines. So because of that, I think the public is going to feel much more normal again in a few weeks, if not, you know, a couple months. And I think that might help the president's poll ratings. I look forward to a State of the Union and what he says. And then in terms of the economy, we have had incredible job growth, record-setting job growth. GDP has also significantly expanded. However, inflation has increased, and that is a problem. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. People are feeling the pain. All of you are feeling the pain. My family is. None of us like to pay higher prices for groceries or at the gas pump or for products. And you're seeing inflation all around the world. So part of it is pandemic related. It's just a really simple supply and demand curve. When you have a higher demand and less supplies, prices go up. Some of that is starting to work itself out. And so we're hopeful that you might see declines in inflation, but you also might not, because corporations have also looked at this and said, hey, guess what? We could actually raise prices and make record profits. If you look at the 2 largest oil companies, for example, they had record-setting revenues, and you know that is a problem. So I commended President Biden for urging and asking the Federal Trade Commission to look at any price gouging practices, any anti-competitive behavior. So you got both of those things happening. And then a third thing that's happened is we have increased wages. That is a good thing. It also turns out that if you increase wages and you have low supply of products and items, that's also going to contribute to inflation. That is better than the other way around if you have people who are poor and didn't have their wages increase. So that is what we're facing.
Well, it's a lot of information. Hope we can take it out. I have a question from Tad Daly, who is really always very much worried about the end of the world. And he says, as you know, in the perilous days following January 6th, General Mark Milley took steps to prevent a possibly unhinged President Trump from initiating a nuclear first strike, even though General Milley clearly lacked any legal authority to do so. As you know, too, every president has the sole authority to order a nuclear launch without any constraint or consultation, a power far too dangerous to reside in the hands of any single woman or man, not just Donald Trump. Would you update us, please, about the status of your bill with Senator Markey to eliminate sole authority and to put some kind of checks and balances on bringing about the end of the world? Thanks.
Well, thank you for asking that question. So Senator Markey and I introduced this legislation when Obama was president and when all of us thought that Hillary was going to be the next president. So it was never directed at Trump in any way. It was simply our view that the current nuclear launch approval process is unconstitutional because when you look at it, basically one person wakes up one day and says, you know, I want to launch nuclear weapons. And then it happens. There is no check and balance there. Basically, the president gives an order and the order gets transmitted down through military chain of command, and then missiles launch. The president's cabinet has no role in this. The judiciary has no role. No member of Congress has any role. And that order cannot be legally countermanded. So when we look at the Constitution, our view is that's just flat out unconstitutional, because if you look at the structure of the Constitution and the wording, the framers of the Constitution went to great lengths to stop the president. They created an entire legislative branch to stop the president. They created an entire judicial branch to stop the president. And then they gave the greatest power they knew at that time, the power to declare war, to Congress. In our view, they would never, ever have allowed one person to launch thousands of nuclear weapons that could kill hundreds of millions of people in less than an hour and not have called that war. And so our legislation is pretty simple. It says before the president can launch a premeditated nuclear first strike, the president has to get congressional approval. When we introduced it, we actually got bipartisan support. Unfortunately, something not really good happened the last 4 years, and that was that moderate Republicans either retired or lost their primaries. And so it's been hard now to get bipartisan support because it's a much more radicalized Republican base and a lot more radical Republican members in Congress. So we keep working at that. And again, my view of politics is that everything seems impossible until it happens. And so we're going to keep pushing on this, and hopefully we'll be able to get it into law.
I'm remembering what you said to me when I finally got you as my representative after like, God, what, 14 years, right? Or something like, waiting for the impossible to happen. Because yes, I did. I lost Ben, but I got Ted, so it all balances out, A question for you. Please comment on the Republican Party taking the position that June 6th was legitimate political discourse. Amazing, right? Will they pay for taking this position at the ballot box? And do you think the DSCC, DSC, and DNC messaging will use this quote? Will that work?
First of all, what the Republican National Committee did was nuts. And
I meant January 6th, by the way, obviously. Sorry.
The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee is actually doing polling on that very issue right now. And so we're going to see what it shows. I do believe that more and more Americans are starting to realize that the Republican Party has changed in a very bad way. They are much more radical now than they were before. They're starting to adopt fringe positions, and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Madison Cawthorn and Matt Gaetz now are the face of the Republican Party.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure the polling is going to show that, yes, we should absolutely talk about that. So we're going to wait to see what the polling shows.
It's just so just incomprehensible that they can be the face of the party, of a once great party. You know, we might not agree on everything, but it's just unbelievable, really, to have these horrible people. And what's her name who brought the guns into the house during that? I mean, Bobart, who are these people? It's not what we think of when we think of elected officials. And why do they have a following like this, Ted? Why?
Now you're asking me to think like a Republican, and that's hard.
Yeah, I know, but it's just I mean, you look at Mitt Romney, okay, who we don't love, but we sort of thought he was a reasonable person, and he doesn't stand up. The two women, they don't stand up in this Republican
every now and then Mitt Romney will stand up. I mean, he
every
did
now and again.
He did vote for conviction.
Yes,
for example.
yes, which I did appreciate, but that's what I mean. But then it doesn't go further. You know, just when you hope that we're getting somewhere,
Right.
We can't get those extra votes, right?
Right.
Marcia Hanscom has a question. Thanking you for continuing to push forward your bill to direct the National Park Service to study the natural resources and historical sites on the LA coast and to consider an extension of the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area from Venice to San Pedro. Does the bill need to pass the House again? Because it did last year at this time as part of the public lands package. But her question is, what can we do to persuade Senator Padilla to sponsor the Senate version of your bill?
Thank you for that question. So it'd be great if you could contact his office. They'll be super helpful. And I don't think it's, I mean, it's not like people are opposed to the bill. I think it's because Congress has so much to do that it's a matter of trying to get it sort of onto a floor vote, right? So for example, government was going to shut down next week. By the way, we prevented that from happening. As I like to say, we've got low standards and we need it. So we were able to prevent that. But there's all these like things that keep popping up in Congress that you have to deal with, right? If Putin invades Ukraine, well, we're going to spend some time on that then, right? And if other things happen, so part of it is just trying to get the Senate to have floor time to then pass various pieces of legislation. But contacting Senator Padilla will be awesome and really helpful.
Yeah, so you hear that, everyone. It's these direct contacts that sometimes work. And then of course, it does help that we're from the same state here. I think you all want to support one another, don't you? I would hope.
Absolutely.
So. Yes. So does anyone else have any questions for the Congress member? There are a couple of questions about Trump destroying records, and to destroy records is supposed to be a crime, right? Like a federal offense. So is there any chance at all that Garland would file criminal charges against Trump for this?
So as you know, Congress is a legislative branch. We don't prosecute or convict, but we can highlight. And the January 6th committee has been great about this. The Oversight Committee of the House has now opened an investigation into this very issue. It is my hope that the Justice Department will look at the documents, information that are turned up, and that they will do the right thing. But it is the executive branch that does prosecutions, and it's going to really be up to them.
Yeah. So what is going to happen? When will we get the report on January 6th? I mean, will it be, do you think, before the midterms? Will we be able to use it to help our cause?
So I've talked to some of the January 6th committee members, all of whom are doing terrific work. It will definitely be before the midterms, not because it's time to midterm, but because they're getting a lot of information and they're on a timeline that's going along well, and they expect to complete most of their investigation, I think in the next couple to few months. I don't know the exact date, but they're going to be having public hearings as well. And the overwhelming majority of witnesses actually voluntarily cooperated. So it's only a small handful that have not. And so you're able to get a lot of this investigation done because of all that cooperation that they're getting from various witnesses.
So the big question is, will this make any difference to them? What comes out? Will it make any difference to Marjorie Taylor Greene, to all of these people, all of the followers? Will they be convinced at all?
I don't think Republican members of Congress will, but I think moderate Republican voters might, and independents might be swayed. So we'll see what happens there.
So that's how we'll have to do. And I think maybe we'll close with this question, which sort of this dovetails into that when you think about what will the report, the findings from the report mean. And so Kelly is asking, is there any effort to deal with falsehoods in social media or cable broadcasts?
That's a very complex question. So my view is that it's really hard to sort of have an ability for government to say what is true and false and to control that. So my general preference is to fight stupid, false, or misleading speech with more speech.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if, for example, there is blatant misrepresentation during a pandemic about certain health issues, then, should there be ways to shut that down? I don't know, maybe. I have to think about that. I'd be, I think, less worried if private companies did that. And so that's what we did see. You saw their private sector social media companies shut down or try to shut down a lot of misinformation, but a lot still continues to be pumped out. I would have more problem if it was government trying to do that, because then it would depend on which government party is in control. Because once you allow government to regulate their internet and to regulate Facebook or Twitter, then you're really depending on the government being good. So would you really want, let's just go back not that many years ago to a time when Trump was president, Republicans control the Senate, Republicans control the House. Would you want that government telling you what you can and can't see on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever it is? And to me, that would be the worry and the problem.
Right. Well, it is such a worrying problem as it is now with all the fake news from their side. I will say, to close here, Nick Antonicello just said, actually, in his opinion, why should we really be talking about anything in 22 except the progress on COVID and Biden's record on the economy and addressing inflation? Because that seems to make people feel a part of the system, and that's what people seem to be interested in. So,
I agree with Nick.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll be hearing from you, I'm sure. I really appreciate you coming out. You're always so generous with your time for us, Ted. And, we love you. We have your back in whatever you do. And we know you feel the same about us. So thank you, and have a great, wonderful day, and love to your family. Your wonderful
Thank you.
family.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've just got news that there are a few more people here on the call. David Chang, a Superior Judge candidate. I've seen his picture there somewhere, comes up on the line up on top. And then, of course, Greg Good, he's running for Council District 11. He's former president of the LA Board of Public Works. And he was way back in the day, my vice president. He was vice president political and I was vice president operations. So that was really nice. And I also see Robert Pullen Miles. He's the mayor of Lawndale and he is running for the new AD 61, which was 62 Autumn Burke seat. And we have Mike Newhouse up. I can't really see everybody who's on. There's Mike. Wait, oops, I just scrolled you off. And Mike is former president of the Venice Neighborhood Council, and he too is running for CD11. So, and then of course we have our own chair of our state and national committee, Molly Baszler, who's running also for CD5.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
And then as you come in, if I haven't mentioned you, please do send it in the chat if you're here, if you're running for office. And now I want to turn the meeting over to wait, we don't need Molly here. I want to turn the meeting over to our own county assessor, Jeff Prang, who's been a member of the club forever, great friend. And the thing is, Jeff has made the assessor's office visible. No one ever knew what the assessor did. They thought, well, what do? They determine your taxes, which isn't even true. But he has been so transparent. He shared so much information with us that we as constituents had never received. He hosted webinars. Actually, I attended one a couple months ago on Prop 19, and it was so helpful. Jeff sends out informational emails. One that I read recently is, why did my property taxes go up so much? And he said, it's not the county assessor that's responsible, it's the treasurer and tax collector. So he has given us so much insight, and I'm thrilled to welcome here, to talk to us, to share some information with us, and then hopefully to endorse him as our candidate for assessor, because there is no reason not to. So take it, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Robin. You're hired. That was that was very, very generous, and thank you for the kind introduction. It's nice to see so many friends here today. I'm delighted to have a few minutes to tell you a little bit about my campaign and what's going on in the assessor's office. I always get people say, you've got nothing to worry about. Nobody knows your opponents, but running for assessor is a lot like running for judge. Not a lot of money, and a lot of people are casting votes that are ill-informed, because it's just very difficult to reach members of the public. So I'm still working on a very hard grassroots campaign, and appreciate your willingness to share some time with me. Just a couple of things about the assessor's office that you may not know. I run the largest local property assessment agency in the United States. I've got over 1,300 employees, a budget of close to $200 million. I'm responsible for establishing the value for over 2.5 million real property parcels and business assessments annually, which last year were valued about $1.8 trillion, which generates close to $18 billion in property tax revenue, which is foundational to support cities, school districts, county government, whether it be hospitals, roads, all the things that we rely on the most are paid for, at least in part, with property taxes, and that all begins with my office. So it's important that the assessor be efficient and thorough in doing their job. While we're not a revenue department per se, revenue is a byproduct of what we do. And if I don't do my job well, then that means that revenues that should be going into public services is not. So when I was elected assessor 7 years ago, the department, as you may recall, was in disarray due to the scandal involving my predecessor. He spent a number of months as a guest of the sheriff. When I was elected, I enacted sweeping reforms intended to restore integrity and accountability to the office. And I want to be immodest, but I think we've really transformed this office into one of the most well-regarded agencies of its type in the United States. In fact, we were honored by the International Association of Assessing Officers, it's our national trade organization, with their Certificate of Excellence in Assessment Administration. We're the only California county ever to be so designated. We've implemented dramatic upgrades to our department's technology platform, which improved employee efficiency and public service. You know, when I was first elected, I inherited this ancient 1970s era mainframe green screen technology platform. We've now shifted, we're almost complete with our process of moving it to the cloud. I manage a lot of programs as well people aren't aware of that help you save money in your property taxes, programs for homeowners, seniors, veterans, the disabled, nonprofits. And last year alone, in 2021, we helped those groups save over $650 million in property taxes. We also were proactive in trying to provide property tax relief to people who were impacted negatively, such as the victims of wildfires were entitled to temporary property tax relief. We provide tax relief to over 40,000 small businesses that had to close during COVID, tax relief on their business personal property. And one of the things I'm most proud of that I really wanted to emphasize today is an innovative program dealing with workforce development. I need to hire about 30 appraisers a year just due to attrition, retirements, et cetera. Sometimes though, I can't hire people every year. We'll skip a year without hiring folks, and we fall further and further back. The training that we provide for appraisers in our office is relatively intense. It impacts our normal production. And so I was trying to find a more creative way to get the qualified people that I need with a minimal impact on my organization. And I put together a workforce development program with the community colleges where we're going to move a lot of our government training out of government offices into the community colleges and not only provide a qualified and trained field of applicants for the jobs that I have, which are good paying county jobs with benefits and good retirement, but it's also going to provide a jobs pipeline for community college students. We're doing them right now. The pilot program ran at West LA College and Rio Hondo College. And as you know, community colleges really help provide opportunities, particularly from those from underserved communities. We've worked really hard to increase our public education so that people can navigate what is a very complex and often confusing property tax system more easily. And I do believe that the reforms and innovations that I've advocated for have brought tremendous value to the people of LA County. I think most of you have known me for many years. I've been active in Democratic Party politics as a club member, a club president. I still remain a member of the County and State Central Committee and Executive Board. I'm very proud to be the officially endorsed candidate of the LA County Democratic Party. I've got a number of Democratic clubs, labor unions, and public officials, including Senator Padilla, Controller Betty Yee, Supervisors Sheila Kuehl, Janice Hahn, Hilda Solis, who are all supporting me. And I've been supported in all of my campaigns by the West LA Democratic Club. I'm back here today to respectfully request your consideration once again. There's a lot of information about what I've done over the last 7 years on my website, as well as a number of projects that I've outlined for the next 4 years if reelected. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here to share a little bit of information with you, and would be grateful to answer your questions and seek your endorsement.
Thank you. So there's actually a question in the chat for you. How much in new revenue have you generated in added assessments? And are you at 100% of market value on either the residential or commercial side? So
going back to where we started, the assessor is not involved with revenue. We're not a revenue department. We are real estate appraisers, and our job is to accurately and fairly reflect the value of the property. So property under Prop 13, as you know, is assessed at the time of a transfer or a purchase or a sale. And then you are locked in at that level as long as you own that property. There is a maximum 2% adjustment for cost of living that can be applied. The only time we reassess your property to market value is at the time of transfer. And we are constitutionally obligated to come up with the fair market value at the time of transfer. So I believe that the properties that we enroll on an annual basis, based on sales, based on new construction, are 100% fair market value. Of course, you can challenge that by filing an appeal, but I think our appraisers do a pretty good job of coming up with the right value. If I could read into that question a little bit more, obviously assessed value, almost from the moment you purchase your property, the assessed value is now less than the market value, because properties have been going up for 11 years straight in LA County. Commercial and industrial properties, because they have a number of different ownership vehicles through LLC, through corporations, they're actually able to change hands, sometimes over short periods of time, sometimes over long periods of time, without being reassessed. And I think that's a problem that still is crying out to be addressed. Bottom line, there's probably a great deal more money that could be generated out of property taxes, but the constraints of Proposition 13 and the law have limited that.
Okay, so there's another one more question. Is that okay with you? Do you have a couple minutes, Jeff?
As much time as you need.
Thank you, sweetheart. Okay, so how does the home multi-owner model in PACASA, I don't know what that stands for, affect your ability to assess properties, to assess the properties?
I'm sorry, what is that?
How does the home multi-owner model in PACASA?
I don't know what that is.
Kelly, what does that mean?
Picasa is a brand name for a service. They'll have up to, I think it's 4 owners for a home. And so the home literally is owned through a kind of a corporate or LLC structure. People can buy in and people can sell out, but the property stays under the umbrella of the LLC. So I think this may go back to what you were just talking about, but this has been one that's been kind of scaring me lately, because I'm seeing TV ads and billboards for it.
There are, I think, somewhat in response to the affordable housing crisis, there's a lot of creative developers and property owners that are trying to come up with new vehicles for ownership, including things such as tenants in common. And I have to admit that some of these things are even specialties within our own office, and I don't know that I can speak intelligently about all of them. But just to emphasize what our duty is, and that is to try to determine the fair market value at the time of a purchase. If it is an LLC and the owners own like shares, then we probably would not segregate those shares individually. The property would be assessed as a whole, and the whole would be responsible for the property taxes. And if it's held in an LLC or some other type of legal entity, it's possible that those properties can change hands under the law. And this is not a constitutional law. This is a statute that says that 50% ownership has to change hands before it could be reassessed. That is something that the legislature can do right now, today. They can come up with a measurement that says that if LLCs and corporations change more than 50% ownership within a certain period of time, let's say 3 years, it need to be reassessed. Right now, they can do it forever. And you may remember a couple of years ago, the example of the Fairmont Hotel in Santa Monica, when billionaire Michael Dell bought it. Its assessed value was about $80 million. Its market value was $250 million. But because they purchased it by using LLCs, under the law, 50% ownership didn't change, even though 100% controlled it. And that was the court scheme that was not reappraisable. That is believe it or not, that is actually even an issue that the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association believes is an inappropriate application of the intent of Prop 13. And I know that we have some legislators on the call right now. I would urge you to take a look at this issue, because we could close that with a statute.
Okay. I think people are happy. I think you're great, Jeff. Really, you've just, as I said in the beginning, you really opened this up to a whole other level, this office. And so everyone, Jeff will be on our ballot, as will the sheriffs, as will our question about our bylaws change. You can actually read it on the ballot. I inserted it there. They'll be going out, by the way, at around 5:45, and you'll have a half an hour to vote. They should be closing, the ballot's closing at 6:15. You won't get it before then, and it'll be hopefully, in midway between the sheriff's forum. So we hope everyone will be listening closely. So thank you, Jeff. And is Andrea here?
Yes, I am, Cara.
Okay. So everyone, I would like to introduce to you, I'm sure if you've been on our meetings before, you've seen her before. She moderates quite a few of our meetings. This is Andrea Ambras, who is the club's Ledge Action Public Policy Chair, and she's also the Deputy Director of the California Natural Resources Agency. So yeah, we've got a good one here. So Andrea is going to moderate our sheriff's forum for the first half, and then Ingrid and I will be closing it out the second half hour. So thank you. Go.
Thanks, Cara. And good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. I'll overview the format for today's discussion and forum with great appreciation for the candidates who are attending here today. We'll try to be as concise as possible. And we will have a timer. Our colleague Brad will be bringing a light buzz during the last 30 seconds of each candidate's response to not hopefully interrupt their responses, but to alert them of the time that they have left remaining. So we'll begin with, as Cara mentioned, we'll start with introductions with the candidates. We'll have 2 minutes time for each candidate. Then we'll continue with 5 different questions, 90-second responses each. And we'll have a closing of 90 seconds as well. And we will rotate the order to ensure fairness. And my colleague Rad will be spotlighting all of the candidates as we begin shortly. So we would like to welcome, and thank you very much again for being here, Robert Luna, Cecil Rhambo, Eli Vera, Eric Strong, and I'm not sure if Sheriff Villanueva is on. Rad, are you able to get him on?
I don't see him at the moment, but I will continue looking. Maybe he's under a different name. If you can raise your hand, Sheriff, that would be great. If you are here.
And to make sure that we're continuing a conversation, what we'll do is get started with the introductions. Again, those would be 2 minutes timed each. The first order will be Robert Luna, followed by Cecil Rhambo, followed by Eric Strong, followed by Eli Vera, and should the sheriff join us, the sheriff. And we'll repeat each order so it's not confusing each time. So we'll let you know. Again, appreciate your presence today. So let's begin with those 2 minutes. Over to you, Robert Luna.
Thank you, and good evening, West Los Angeles Democrats. Very humbled to be in front of you and asking for your support and endorsement. My name's Robert Luna, and I'm running for Los Angeles County Sheriff. I'm running to restore public trust, credibility, and reform to the LA County Sheriff's Department. The current sheriff, in my opinion, has created dysfunction and chaos, which has put our public safety at risk. And I just believe we can do much better. I'm the only candidate that comes from the outside the Sheriff's Department. I'm the only candidate who can deliver true reform, to make it a forward-thinking organization and open to change and innovation. As the Long Beach Police Chief for the last 7 years, I have led the second largest police department in our county. I have been accountable to the public in Long Beach and have taken responsibility for the actions of my department and actually have had civilian oversight. I have led the department towards community-centered police policies and practices modeled by the Task Force on 21st Century Policing established by President Obama back in 2014. My top 5 priorities for the Sheriff's Department are to restore public trust and credibility. Number 2, reform and modernize the department, reduce violent crime, address homelessness, and improve deputy wellness. Was that the 2 minutes?
That was 30 seconds.
I grew up in a Latino working class immigrant family in the unincorporated area of East Los Angeles. I translated for my parents as a young kid. I only spoke Spanish and witnessed a lot of social inequity. That's how I became an advocate for justice and inspired me to seek a career in law enforcement and share my views on relationship-based policing in an underserved communities of color. I have a reputation for listening and being able to work in partnership with our community. And I'm endorsed by Robert Garcia and many other elected officials. Thank you very much.
Mr. Luna. Over to you, Cecil Rhambo.
Hi, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for having me and hosting this. I'm a 45-year plus public servant. I started in the mid 70s as a kid lifeguard, teaching kids how to swim and seniors how to swim and being a swim coach. I graduated from Humboldt State University with a sociology degree and joined the Sheriff's Department and spent 33 years in that organization and worked everything from patrol, custody, undercover narcotics, internal affairs, where I worked with then 1992 post-Rodney King, progressive police reformers, Merrick Bob, as well as the Colts Commission at Internal Affairs. I went back to Internal Affairs as a lieutenant and was the second in command of that unit when I was there. And I also was part of the AB 109 Prison Realignment Committee, in which we brought forth alternatives to incarceration, rehabilitation programs, reentry programs, and really how prison realignment looks here in Los Angeles County back then. I was also the Regional Community Policing Institute director when I commanded the Cops Bureau in the Sheriff's Department as far back as 2004. I'm really running to restore the public trust in the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department is the largest Sheriff's Department in the country. It's very complex. What a lot of people don't realize is the Sheriff also has the largest county, fourth largest hospital in the county, 23,000 jail beds, and contracts out to 43 cities. I hope to earn your endorsement, and I want to really, if you're not electing a sheriff when you elect me, you're electing a partner in the community as well with other elected officials. I have well over 100 endorsements, and that really means that these folks want me and trust me to be their law enforcement officer for those millions of people that they represent. I humbly ask for your endorsement. Thank you.
Next is Eric Strong.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here today. It's such an honor and a pleasure. I just want to say that, I have close to 30 years of law enforcement experience. I have 3 different agencies, and I think that's important because I didn't come up through this Sheriff's Department. I bring some real outside perspective. What I'm looking to do is share my experience with the communities of Los Angeles County with Los Angeles County residents. I've worked just about everything you can work within this career. I've been a field training officer, I've been an investigator, I've been on a SWAT team, I've done a task force. I've worked with kids for many years. That was one of my passions. I've worked several different stations. I've been the unit commander of our advocacy bureau, as well as audit and accountability, and our South Los Angeles station. I have a lot of experience and expertise in our courts, in our jails, and as well as our patrol functions. And what we really need right now is a sheriff that is going to put community first, that's going to bring compassion, dignity, and respect to the services that we give to each and every person in Los Angeles County, not only in the public, but as well as those that are incarcerated. I have done this my entire career, and I'll tell you the difference. I didn't have to have a job assignment. I didn't have to be part of my duty statement to bring compassion and respect. It's the way that I was raised. I grew up here in Los Angeles County. As a Black man growing up, I experienced driving while Black. I have been a victim of crime. I've been roughed up by police. I have family members that have been incarcerated and suffered from homelessness. I have family members that have been killed by law enforcement. What we really need is somebody that truly brings a 360-degree perspective. And what we really need is somebody that has the experience to deal with, as Cecil said, the largest jail system and the largest court system in our country. Bringing somebody from the outside that has never dealt with that, it's going to take too long. We need somebody that can get to work right away. That's me. I'm here to answer your questions and ask for your endorsement. Thank you.
Eli Vera.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me today. It's truly a pleasure. A little bit about myself. I'm a native-born Angelino. My mother immigrated to this country with my sister. I was born in a county hospital just outside of downtown Los Angeles. I was raised in Section 8 housing. I attended LA City schools via LA City transportation. When I graduated high school, college wasn't an option because simply we couldn't afford it. So I enlisted in the Marine Corps, where I served as a Marine Presidential Honor Guard for President Reagan. Once I left the Marine Corps, I joined the Sheriff's Department some 33 years ago. I've worked every major division in the Sheriff's Department, including being a SWAT commander, a tactical expert, investigations, executive office, court services, every major division across the board. I promoted up through the ranks, up through division chief. But what I'm most proud about is what I did when I was in positions of leadership, what we did in South LA. I spent 17 years of my career serving the citizens of South Los Angeles. We, under my leadership, we partnered with local businesses to create safe environments in order to stimulate the local economy. We created relationships with them where in turn, they turned around and they opened up opportunities for employment for our kids. I created programs for our children, after school education. And in addition, outside as a private citizen, my wife and I were foster parents to kids in those communities that we contacted during the course of patrol, kids that were going to fall into the system that we opened our homes to. So I bring a perspective that's well-rounded, and I come to you as a candidate for sheriff because I believe that Los Angeles is united, and I'm the person to bring it together, unify it.
Brad, are we able to bring onto screen Sheriff Villanueva? Is he present? If the sheriff is available.
Sorry, Sheriff, can you raise your hand?
Okay, I don't think we have the sheriff.
I don't believe so.
Oh, that he said he was coming. That's interesting.
Nevertheless, we very much appreciate all of the introductions that we've had. We'll be able to save a little time on the back end because we will be changing the order. Just want to start really by saying, we appreciate your efforts in protecting our communities. As a public servant myself, I very much appreciate and thank you for your public service within our neighborhoods. I think all of you really do bring a lot of experience to this role, and we are looking forward to your responses to these questions. So following, we will have 5 different questions. We will rotate the order each time. We'll read out the list of orders in advance. I will say we do expect to have the 30-minute time, or 30-minute second bell again to start, and then we'll have that ding at the end. So to begin, we'll start with one question, particularly around the role of law enforcement. The question is, what is the role of law enforcement when engaging with unhoused individuals and also individuals with mental health illnesses? We'll start with Cecil Rhambo, then Eric Strong, then Eli Vera, then Robert Luna. So the question again is, what is the role of law enforcement when engaging unhoused individuals and individuals with mental health illnesses? Mr. Rhambo?
Hi, thank you guys for that question. I've been working with the unhoused and the mentally ill since 2004. And unfortunately, up until recently, there hasn't been the political will nor the funding for mental health professionals, as well as people like LASA, PATH, HOPICS to go out and do outreach for the homeless. It's in my opinion, law enforcement should be the last resort. And the models that we are really finally starting to implement, I think, are vitally important, particularly dealing with the mentally ill. And I deal with the mentally ill quite often at the airport, as well as the unhoused. And so what we do is we have a wraparound model, which is one I created as far back as 2004, understanding that many of the folks that we come in contact with have substance abuse issues that are either caused by or a result of mental health issues. And having those wraparound services, bringing in all folks that have a Department of Mental Health person that works with us, I think we should be last in on these issues and then work collaboratively with all the groups that really are designed to really, those professionals that are designed to really deal with those particular issues.
Mr. Rhambo. Over to Eric Strong.
Hi, thank you. You know, I think we've all worked with our unhoused population and the mentally ill population for many years. And what we do know is this: we will not find our solutions, not sustainable ones, to being unhoused, to being mentally ill, to addiction problems inside our jails. But that's all we've been doing for probably the last 10 or 20 years. What we need is sustainable solutions, and that's where the Sheriff's Department comes in to be a collaborator, to work with other organizations, agencies within the county system and nonprofits in order to bring about a collaborative effort. There's obviously the issue of protection and safety, and they have every right and they deserve to be protected and safe as well, wherever they are. Unhoused population, there's no blanket answer. We have people that suffer from mental illness. We have people that suffer from addiction. We have people that are families that fall on hard times. And we have people that choose to be out there. So we need to have customized solutions for each of those populations. And that's only going to come from collaboration. It's not the Sheriff's Department, shouldn't be their primary function. We should be there to help, to assist when and how we can, and to be there as an advocate for true sustainable services.
Eli Vera.
Yes, I think the sheriff is uniquely positioned to bring different entities to the table together, whether it be the state, the county, local municipalities, the independent police chief across the board, to deal with this problem in a collaborative manner. I think both previous statements were on point. We're not going to find the solution solely in law enforcement. However, law enforcement does play a role, and the sheriff has to make sure that he is advocating and providing top-level training to his personnel, growing our mental evaluation teams and our host team, so that when we support these outreaches to our unhoused population, we bring in the right deputy sheriffs with the right temperament, with the right training, so that we're helping in the process and we're not escalating the issues. But we also have to keep in mind that the residents of Los Angeles County deserve to live in an environment where they're protected as well. So we have to get to the root causes of homelessness, addiction, mental health issues, and we have to provide the services. That's why I advocate for a mental health hospital that's not related to the jail, so we can provide those services, to our unhoused population.
Thank you, Mr. Vera. Robert Luna.
Yeah, I enjoyed all the answers from all the candidates. For me, it is the issue of our time. We absolutely have to address it. It can't just be the sheriff, although the sheriff does have to advocate and take a huge leadership role. It has to be a data-driven effort. It has to be a multidisciplinary effort. Because it's a significant issue, it will take collaboration and partnerships from everyone involved, from government to the private sector. In Long Beach, as the chief of police, I was very successful in forming both quality of life teams and mental evaluation teams to work with service first oriented enforcement as the last option. I actually am considered a subject matter expert through the Police Executive Research Forum, where I've went to different cities around the country and have made presentations on homelessness. From a major city chief's perspective, I can bring all those relationships that I established with other government officials, police chiefs, and academics to come bring them to LA County so we can fix this problem once and for all, because the status quo is not working. We need better solutions. We need academics. We need an all hands on deck approach. And we need to work on this together with everybody on this phone call to get to the places we need to get to. Apart from that, homeless is a big passion of mine. I actually do it off duty. I'm on the board of the Long Beach Rescue Mission, and I volunteer with my family to help the homeless here in Long Beach. Thank you.
Next question is, please share your perspective on the sheriff's role in enforcing immigration laws. Should individuals be eligible for ICE referrals? We'll start with Eli Vera, continue with Rep.Lieu, then to Eric Strong, then to Cecil Rhambo. The question again is, please share your perspective on the sheriff's role in enforcing immigration laws. Should individuals be eligible for ICE referrals? Over to Eli Vera.
Yes, I think the County Board of Supervisors has spoken, been quite clear as to the positions of the county. The sheriff's role is not to enforce immigration laws. The sheriff's role is to provide public safety for our communities. The sheriff's role is to build public trust. And if in a population that has so many immigrants in Los Angeles, if we involve ourselves in immigration, we're never going to gain public trust. Therefore, there's going to be so many crimes that are going to go uninvestigated, unreported because of that fear. So I believe that that is not the role of the sheriff's department. However, we have to use common sense. So if we have some person with a serious background, such as homicides and violent crimes and multiple shootings and things of that nature, then that person is a person that's very problematic for our communities. And we have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. But overall, that's not the role of the sheriff's department.
Yeah. Over to Rep.Lieu.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The police department, the sheriff's department, any local municipality should not be involved in the civil enforcement of ICE. We as police have way too many things on our own dealing with whether it's community engagement, crime, quality of life issues, and ICE needs to do their thing, and we should not be cooperating with them. That comes from a personal level. My mother was detained by ICE and she had papers to be here, and she talked about the trauma that caused her. So to me, it's personal. That's something we don't do. As the police chief in Long Beach, I was part of a national law enforcement immigration committee that dealt with better relationships. So when I sat down directly with the current Homeland Security Director, Secretary Mayorkas, these are the things we talked about. I have a relationship with them, and that's the kind of relationship I bring back again to the County of Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
Over to Eric Strong.
All right, thank you, Amber. You know, the short answer to this, it's a very short one. Absolutely not. We do not need to be a part of that process at all. The only real quick thing that I will add is that will be up to the sheriff's department, its leadership, and everybody to create outreach, to go out and tell our residents that it's okay, it's safe. They can come and report a crime. They can report being a victim. They can come and talk to law enforcement, and they don't have to worry about being reported to ICE or being deported at all. That is on us to get that message out there and to build that trust. And like I said, in short, the answer is no, not at all.
Cecil Rhambo.
As I mentioned, you're not electing a sheriff. You're really looking to elect a partner with the community. And ICE has no place for law enforcement. For us at the local level, it's not our position to enforce any of those ICE rules out in the field. Just like Special Order 20 for LAPD, I'm committed to drafting some policy. In the Sheriff's Department, very similar. On the other hand, just like Eli had mentioned, I am on the Human Trafficking Task Force. I have a detective there. And there are certain instances in which people have, they come here and they actually traffic folks. So people that have committed very violent crimes, very bad domestic violence suspects. I think we need to, work as closely as we can to keep our communities safe. Now, working at the airport, I do have a relationship with Customs and Border Patrol, as you know. However, my police department does not enforce any local rules or laws. And we don't have a policy. We have no policy that allows them to do that. So as a sheriff, as Eric said, no, we're not going to be doing that in the field. And I'm the only one who is not a US born citizen here. I stand before you as a naturalized citizen from Korea.
We'll continue to our next question. There have been recent reports around subgroups or gangs within the Sheriff's Department. We'd like to hear your thoughts on those. We'll begin first with Rep.Lieu, then continue with Eric Strong, then Cecil Rhambo, and then Eli Vera. The question again is, how will you deal with subgroups or gangs within the Sheriff's Department?
One is it's nonsense. They need to be eradicated. It needs to stop. That's my immediate answer. You go in there as the sheriff and you set a standard based on principle leadership, which basically means your values, that this is not acceptable. That's hitting on your core values, which should be the law enforcement code of ethics. And if you read those 4 paragraphs, absolutely zero tolerance for this. Number 2, there has to be policy, there has to be training, and from a leadership perspective, from everyone from the sheriff on down, that it is not acceptable. I think you have to have a stick and carrot effect. The carrot is, and one of my priorities is deputy wellness. And I think the mental health care of our employees has to be a priority when you're dealing with any issues surrounding misconduct or criminal behavior. Many times, not all the time, you can go back to wellness and how much effort is being made to address that and remove the stigma even from management to address that. And then the stick, I will bring in the FBI, both state and federal DOJ, but this nonsense will stop, period. Actually, let me take that back, exclamation point, not period.
Thank you, Mr. Luna. Eric Strong.
I've been saying it from the very beginning. These deputy gangs do exist. First of all, I acknowledge that. I'm the only candidate on here that's actually investigated deputy gangs. I did it several times, and one of my investigations led to several terminations, numerous to be exact. So I don't need any more panels. I don't need any more reports. We don't need to ask for any more studies to know, that they exist. It's a reality. Here's the problem. I've been in the Sheriff's Department and I've been in this career for 30 years. I have not heard anybody speak against it. On the inside, no messaging, none of that. What we're talking about now, what all the candidates are talking about was never the messaging when they had the positions of power before. I think I'm the only one that's been speaking to it, and I can tell you, I've been speaking against it for years. I didn't come up in the Sheriff's Department. I came from municipal agencies, and I don't understand the mindset or the culture and how it's been fostered and festered for so long. So the absolute answer is they're here. I will get rid of them. I've proven that I will take the steps and find the facts that will get rid of them. And there's no tolerance for it. There will be policies and zero tolerance. There will be true accountability and true transparency with me in office.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. Cecil Rhambo.
Yeah, that is something that I echo the sentiments of the other candidates. It's a zero tolerance environment. It begins by leading from the top. You guys have seen me virtually disrobe to prove that I'm not part of those kinds of groups. I've already been in contact and speaking with folks from the federal agencies as well as the Inspector General's office because, I have a long-standing relationship with police oversight. Unlike one of the candidates who mentioned that he's actually investigated deputy gangs. As a lieutenant in internal affairs, I direct who gets investigations, and as an executive, I direct investigations towards looking into these issues. And because he hasn't been in the department as long, he doesn't realize that over the years, literally from pitches to block to Baca to McDonald, this has been something that we've all looked at and wrestled around with. And it's really I helped Assembly member Mike Gibson write some legislation to really finally put some teeth into this, so that it's actually a crime to be part of the deputy gang. So we plan to go after it very vigorously with a zero tolerance, no training officers, no background investigators. None of these folks will be promoted if they're involved in that, and they'll be rooted out of the organization, and they can go to another one if they don't like it.
Thank you, Mr. Rhambo. Eli Vera.
Yes, this is something that's plagued the Sheriff's Department for years, decades. And it's critical because there's no way the Sheriff's Department's ever going to gain public trust with this issue festering in the department. I don't believe we need to go outside the organization. I think the management needs to step up and just put an end to this issue. I've spoken, and I beg to differ with Lieutenant Strong, I've spoken to well over 500 deputy sheriffs as to why this practice needs to stop. As a division chief, I wasn't in the position to eliminate it, but I was in the position to speak out against it. And I believe it's changing the culture. I believe it starts with the sheriff, what the sheriff accepts, what he doesn't accept. And then there's an educational component, because at the end of the day, these deputy sheriffs are bringing on liability to the organization, the citizens of Los Angeles County, and them and their families individually. And I've explained to these deputies that at the end of the day, if they get assessed punitive damages, county's not paying for it. It's going to come out of their pocket. So very simply, we're going to put an end to it. We're going to change the culture, and we're going to change the policies, and that's going to happen day one.
Thank you, Mr. Vera. And thank you again for all of the answers to these questions. My colleague Ingrid and also President Cara Robin are going to continue the remainder of the questions.
You're muted, Ingrid. Ingrid, you're muted. Ingrid, you're muted.
All right.
Okay.
Yes. Welcome, everyone. And here's the next question for our wonderful candidates. And the question is, how significant do you see the risk of domestic terrorism on the local level? What could the sheriff's office be doing better to protect the people of Los Angeles from the risk of domestic terrorism? And in my opinion, we're talking about white supremacy and certain other people. And we're starting with Robert Luna.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question. Domestic terrorism, unfortunately, is alive and well. It's something that we 100% have to pay attention to. From whether it's the Sheriff's Department or other departments, we have to work collaboratively. We have to look at the information that's out there. And just from my perspective, the experience I have, I was right before I retired as a Long Beach police chief, I was the board chair for the Joint Regional Intelligence Center, which incorporated 6 counties, LAPD, LA County Sheriffs, and the FBI. We were working very hard, and domestic violence was on the top of our list for anything that we were dealing with. I also sat as part of my Major City Chiefs Association. I was on the Homeland Security Committee, where domestic terrorism, again, was at the top of our list. And what the key is staying on top of the information and having partnerships from the FBI to other federal agencies with acronyms. So they're consistently keeping us updated. We're doing investigations and then collaborating with the community to make sure if we see something, we're saying something, or we read something online, we have to stay on top of it. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning on Sunday. I don't care if it's Easter, whatever holiday it is, we take it serious. We never turn our back on it. And that's how we've arrested people here in this county, here in the Los Angeles region, because of all the great intelligence. And just one last thing, We are a model here in Southern California for the way intelligence gets shared between federal, state, and regional and local partners. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Eric Strong.
Hi, Ingrid. Yes, specific to your question with white supremacist organizations. As one of the founding board members of an organization called Police Against Racism, PAR, that organization was designed and put in place, and we developed it to do just that: root out systemic racism, white supremacist actions, racially motivated actions within law enforcement, both internally as well as what is imposed upon our communities. We have the intelligence ability to root these things out and to at least find out about them. The question is, do we want to use them? And as leader and as the sheriff, you will see that I will put my full resources behind just that. We have to have an organization that is racially diverse, comes from diverse communities, and one that is going to rule with a sense of compassion. When I say rule, I mean that is going to be their role. That is what they're going to come out there: compassion, dignity, and respect for all people. So we have a lot to do. We have a lot of work to do. We've been looking at it for the last year and a half now, and what it's done to our country. And so this sheriff's department needs to be the model for that, and to step up and call it out. First, we got to call it out, and we can't just call it out from the podium and then get into office and not do anything about it.
Thank you, Eric. And next is Cecil Rhambo.
Hi, Ingrid. Thank you. So I'm the only working chief of police right now, and I can tell you, like Bob, we work directly, plus at the airport, we deal with terrorist threats and terrorism concerns every day. And homegrown extremism is alive and well. And I just want everybody to know that it is monitored 24 hours, 7 days a week. Intelligence reports come to us, and not all the groups are white extremists. Some of them are politically motivated. Some of them are, the leader of the Proud Boys, I believe, is part African-American, part Latino. And so there's a number of things that we have to monitor and keep track of through social media and other open source media, as well as other intelligence methods. And so we do that very vigilantly. On the more important level for a chief of police or the sheriff, one of the things I also monitor is who we hire. Do we look at their social media background? Do we make sure that our officers and our deputies are not involved in these issues and have these extremist ideas? Because that is really the most dangerous part. And it really erodes public trust if you find out that, I believe, a deputy was at the January 6th insurgency. That's very disturbing. And so we root those things out on the front end when we're recruiting.
Thank you. And next is Eli Vera.
Yes, I think these three gentlemen are right on point. I agree with what they're saying across the board. I believe, again, the sheriff is uniquely qualified as the chief law enforcement officer of Los Angeles County to bring in all our entities together, every one of our 45 independent cities, so that we're working collaboratively for the benefit of our residents here in the county. But I want to remind you of one thing that we have to keep in mind, is that when we start getting into intelligence, that's a slippery slope, because when you have good leadership, then you're going to have people that are conducting investigations in a proper manner. But when your leadership changes and you have suspect leadership, then who are they going to target? And so that's why, for me, I would be working very closely with the Inspector General and members of the COC to monitor our intelligence, to make sure we're not going down the rabbit hole. And then there's that balance, because we have to ensure that we're not overstepping and violating public safety. So I think these men are on point. I agree with what they talked about, but we have to consider all sides of this and make sure that we're doing it in a manner that still retains the trust of the community.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have another question, and that is: reports of hate crimes have been on the rise in the last couple of years. What role can the Sheriff's Department play in addressing hate crimes? And I'm starting with Eric Strong.
Thank you, Ingrid. We investigate crimes of any nature, but hate crimes have to be given a special attention. We have to be able to understand the nature of the hate crime. We have to know exactly what it is, and we have to train our employees to recognize it so that it's not something that is going to catch them off guard when they come across it. So it's like any other investigation, but with an extra oomph to it. We will not and cannot tolerate hate crimes, whether it be AAPI, whether it be religious or dealing with our LGBTQ plus communities. We need to stand up. We need to do the right thing. We need to make sure that our investigations are thorough, solid, and that we can present the best case and hopefully get the filing for that. It's just something that we cannot tolerate, and we have to put absolute 100% of our resources behind.
Excellent. And then we need to hear from Cecil Rhambo.
Thank you, Ingrid. So I have experience. I used to have the hate crime task force in the Sheriff's Department. And I worked very closely with Robin Toma, which is, he used to have the Human Relations Commission for the County of Los Angeles. I also created a learning platform for junior high school kids called Share Tolerance, in which we actually reenacted hate crimes committed in Los Angeles County, and we used the real victims. One of them was actually a murder, and the mom was actually the narrator. It was very emotional. I won an award for that. So hate crime in Los Angeles County, specifically from the sheriff's perspective, is not only just something that we investigate, it is also something that we really need to do some outreach in terms of education. We have a number of youth programs that we can work with, bringing together civilian advisory committees to work and gather the various groups together so we can have some dialogue about what's going on in our communities, and then make sure we do community outreach on hate crimes, who to report crimes to. I was a crime task force lieutenant, and a big part of my job was to reach out to all Asians of all Asian persuasions and really bridge that communication gap that we had in law enforcement. And so it's those kinds of things that the sheriff can do, learning platforms, community relations, embracing the community, and having advisory groups to work with Human Relations Commission as well as the Museum of Tolerance.
Thank you. Eli Vera?
Yes, I think that this is a great opportunity for Los Angeles to set the pace for the country and simply model that hate crimes are not going to be tolerated, period, end of story in Los Angeles County. I think that the points that were brought up are very valid. We do need to train our community members to recognize hate crimes, because sometimes it can be somewhat subtle, and we need to train our personnel much more thoroughly so that they're not only recognizing them, but they're properly equipped to investigate them in a very thorough manner. We have to partner, with the prosecution as well to make sure that we take this all the way through. And the messaging is very clear. Los Angeles is a county that under no circumstances is going to tolerate any sort of hate crimes whatsoever. We have to, I think, appeal to the goodness in so many of our residents in Los Angeles County to speak up when they see incidents, as subtle as they may be. We have to have that level of communication and that level of trust so that we're informed and that we can respond properly. I think this is another example of a collaborative effort between the Sheriff's Department and our communities.
Thank you. And Robert Luna.
Thank you, Ingrid. Hate crimes are disgusting. They're unacceptable in any shape, way, or form. Especially when you see these videos, especially elderly folks, I don't care how old you are, hate crimes are unacceptable. I mean, it's sickening, right? But there's a lot to do. One, you do have to train employees. You have to have a strict policy, and you have to hold them accountable for it. Number two is, once you have a response and an investigation to a hate crime, you have to follow up to make sure that the DA's office and the judges are holding individuals who get charges brought against them, enhancements for hate crimes, accountable, because then that message needs to get out from an education perspective that we as a community are not going to tolerate this. These are issues. About 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, I met personally with a group of people who included the State Attorney General, Rob Bonta, where these issues were brought up from community members, and making sure that there's a collaboration between the communities, that it's just not English speaking, that we do it in different languages so people aren't afraid to come forward. And we just have a process from response, investigation through the courts, and then making sure that we're teaching our kids in school that this is not acceptable under any means. Thank you very much for the question. Very important.
Thank you. I think we have one question for everybody, and that is, what is your stance on mandatory vaccines in the Sheriff's Department and for civilians? And we can start with Chief Rhambo.
I support mandatory vaccines. I supported that in the city of Los Angeles. I have 4 employees that we are going to terminate for their failure to not only get the vaccine, but also they have failed to file for an exemption or follow any of the protocols that we put forth as city administrators. It is a condition of employment, and more importantly, as frontline first responders, I think it's important for us, number one, for us to be safe and for you to feel comfortable that we are safe when we're contacting you. So I fully support the vaccine mandate. I've buried 3 security officers, and we've lost 4 janitors at the airport to COVID, and I lost my dad to COVID last year, 2 days after the Super Bowl. So I can tell you it's very personal for me. I strongly support the vaccine mandate, not only for our first lines, first responders, but also for the public.
Thank you. And Eric.
Yeah, I absolutely support the vaccine mandate. Look, I realize that the vaccine is not going to keep us from catching COVID. My wife and I are fully vaccinated. We both caught it, and it's not going to keep us from passing it on. You know, these effective rates are against death. And if we can protect our employees, if we can keep them, and we've had several that have passed away and several that are also probably will never come back to work again. I fully support the vaccine mandate. I think that our current sheriff did an awful job. If you look at LAPD, their vaccine rates was close to 90%. You look at countywide, our vaccine rates are probably a little over 80%. You look at the sheriff's department, it's below 60%. Why? Because of the messaging that came from the very top, from the leadership. He spoke against it from the very beginning. And right now, I have been having numerous conversations with employees that are questioning why they're about to lose their job. You know why? Because they were told they were going to be okay. They were told nothing was going to happen to them, and they believed the sheriff when he told them that. And now they're in fear and jeopardy. So it needs to be messaged from the very top. I absolutely support the vaccine mandate, and I say that we work to get this our numbers up, because they are far short of the norm.
Thank you. And Eli.
Yes, I would echo that that sentiment. The reason the Sheriff's Department is in the predicament that we're in is because of the complete lack of leadership in this organization, and the messaging that we've given our deputies and our professional staff has been appalling. I don't believe that if we would have, the sheriff would have modeled what the vaccine mandate actually is, that we would have the issue that we have today, because I don't believe that the end game of the Board of Supervisors is to terminate a bunch of LA County employees. I think it's an education process for our employees. They need to understand, like Eric was talking about later, it may not prevent you from getting sick, but it's definitely gonna prevent you from, being much more gravely ill or in the hospital or things of that nature. And we have a responsibility to keep our community members safe and clear from exposure that's unnecessary. So I've been very outspoken as to this issue, and I believe that that with any other candidate that is here today, we would have a completely different outcome, and our numbers would be much higher than what they are today.
Thank you. And Chief Luna.
Thank you. Cecil, I didn't know you lost your pops like that, man. I'm really sorry about that. That's horrible. I absolutely 100% support vaccine mandates. In 2021, again, it was a leading cause of death in law enforcement. If that doesn't send a message, what does? I know if you look at the stats across this country, how many people have lost their lives. We all took an oath, and that's what these other candidates are talking about, and I appreciate their service. We rose our right hand to serve and protect. We're in a pandemic of our lifetime. Why wouldn't we get vaccinated? Why wouldn't we push for mandates? Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done regarding a lot of the other issues that are going on, but at the end of the day, we have to be vaccinated. And it works. And just like I'm talking to Cecil about his dad, my mayor, Robert Garcia, lost his mother. She was a very good friend of mine. That had an impact on me personally and a lot of us, and his stepdad to COVID. So it's personal for a lot of us. So thank you for the question and your concern over this issue.
Thank you. I believe we have one more question, and that is, it's also for everyone. Describe a program or policy that you have developed. And there's another part to it. How does the exercise of the DA's prosecutorial discretion, such as not seeking many sentencing enhancements and not prosecuting juveniles?
Ingrid.
Yeah, is that the wrong one?
You're combining two questions.
Okay, I'm sorry. They were
yeah, that's
combined
fine.
here.
That's fine.
Okay, we'll start with the first one. Describe the program or policy that you have developed. And we'll start with Cecil Rhambo.
Well, a policy that I developed was I put a ban on the chokehold before the governor did so. What a lot of people don't realize is that the federal government still has a chokehold. And part of that is because the federal air marshals, when you work in a confined space. But I will tell you, I implemented a policy to ban the chokehold before the governor's order.
Excellent. Eric?
Yeah, while the unit commander at Advocacy Bureau, we weighed in on a whole lot of policies. As a matter of fact, most of the new policies that came out between 2013 and 2015 came through my bureau, and we weighed in on them as the department advisors. But a program that I want to tell you about that I implemented was one dealing with youth and giving youth alternatives and enrichment programs and character development. That's one of the ones that I'm most proud about. We implemented that program. We wrote a grant. I actually serviced the grant, and we were able to take hundreds of kids from the South LA area, take them on field trips, enrich their lives, take them to places and experiences that they would never have had otherwise. And we gave them alternatives. We taught them about, gang involvement. We talked to them about drug abuse, and we talked to them about just making good choices. That's one of the proudest programs that I've actually wrote, and as well as put together and saw it through.
Excellent. And Eli Vera.
Yes, when I was a captain of South Los Angeles Station, I invested heavily in our youth, in our community. And I took an existing program and I took it to the next level. One of the things that I noticed was that we were losing our children at that time to employment, to McDonald's or Jack in the Box or minimum wage jobs across the board, because they had to help put food on the table for their families. And as a result, they would fall out of our after school programs, out of our educational programs, all the different things that we had going on. And at this point, we had somewhere over 300 kids that were involved. So what I did is I took my relationships with the businesses and I partnered directly with the Food for Less business, and turned around and hired every one of our kids that at the time were making, $3-4 an hour more than minimum wage. That way we were able to retain our kids in the program. They were successful. They graduated high school. And as a matter of fact, the board, the supervisor at the time embraced our program, and we started to roll it out countywide.
Thank you. And Chief Luna.
Yeah, I have a long list of accomplishments, but you said only one. So I've successfully transformed the Long Beach Police Department in the last 7 years with training. But one thing I'll talk about is the technology. What we wanted to do is increase accountability. Everyone's concerned about accountability, so was I. So what we did is not only did we bring body worn cameras in with very strict policies on when you turn those on, but we also did a early warning system for officers from an accountability perspective called EI Pro. That is something we're very proud of. And as a matter of fact, some of the numbers in a 5-year period when I was a Long Beach police chief, these technologies help us reduce officer involved shootings by 50%. It reduced our uses of force by 28%, and our citizen complaints were down by 30% because of these technologies. And again, I have a whole list of other things where we really modified the way the Long Beach Police Department did business. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much. And Cara, if I'm not mistaken, I'm at the last question, right?
That's it. We're done with our questions. It's now time for the minute and a half closing from everyone. We're slightly running over, but that's okay. We love to hear from you. And everybody, your ballots are in. Your ballots are in. I just voted. You have another 13 minutes to get your ballots in. I think we can hear from the sheriffs and you can make your final decision. Okay. Let's see. Wait, what was the order? Ingrid, what's the order for the speaking?
For the speaking, we can start with
We're starting. Okay, so it's going to be Eli Vera,
yeah,
Robert
Eli.
Luna, Eric Strong, and Cecil Rhambo. Okay.
Sounds good to me. Eli, Robert.
Yes. Once again, thank you so much for having us here today. I'm truly grateful for this opportunity and for the exchange. I believe the Sheriff of Los Angeles County needs to be a unifier, not a divider. You know, somebody that instinctively looks for the redeemable values in every single human being that they contact, regardless of the circumstances that we find them. Somebody who esteems others greater than oneself. So as the Sheriff of Los Angeles County, I vowed to do 3 things, you know, in the first year of being in office. Number 1 is I'm going to make public safety a priority, because I'm out in the communities every single day and I hear from community members on how fearful they are, that they feel unsafe in our communities, going to school, walking on the streets. But let's be honest, we're never going to achieve public safety without public trust. And the Sheriff's Department has a long way to go. So I'm going to invest heavily in rebuilding our relationships with our communities, earning our public trust, working collaboratively with our oversight so that we gain that public trust. And of course, working with our elected officials. Nothing destabilizes a county more than a sheriff who's at war with every other public official that disagrees with the position that he holds. So I look to be a unifier, and I look to be somebody that will keep this community safe while ensuring that we rebuild that trust.
Excellent. And Chief Robert Luna.
Thank you, Ingrid. Earlier tonight, when we started, we heard Congressman Ted Lieu describe the January 6th attack. I think we all sat there just glued to our screens, and it shows what somebody who's unfit for office can do to us. And right now, I believe this is one of the most important LA County Sheriff races we've ever seen. And yes, we have to pick the right person to move us forward. For me, why am I running again? I absolutely love public service. I love the challenge, and I really care. I really care about this job. I could have retired and went away. I don't want to retire. I want to take this on. I want to roll up my sleeves. I want to be at the table where we're problem solving with all of you, with all of us, because it's going to take us all to handle some of these challenges. So I really hope that I earn your respect, your support, and your endorsement. And just please remember that I believe that I absolutely have the integrity, the experience, and the temperament which we're missing right now in this job. Thank you very much. And I appreciate all of your guys' willingness to jump in and do this for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Eric Strong.
Thank you all for this time and this opportunity. I want to say that, you know, all of my opponents here have fantastic resumes and they look really good. But the reality of it is I'm the one that's staying consistent. I'm the one that did not have to change his party registration to be a part of this Democratic Party. And I didn't change it just before the filing date or just before I announced. You know, I understand Robert wants to, you know, come into this thing, but we need somebody that can get to work right away. He has absolutely no experience working in our jails or our courts, and we have the largest jail system and the largest court system in the country. And he talked about it in another forum. He's going to have to rely on people on the inside. So are we really bringing fresh eyes, or is it going to be similar to what we had with Jim McDonald, somebody that's going to take 2.5 years to get going? We cannot wait. You know, my other opponent, he talked a little bit about, being the only one that did a lot of things. He's forgetting to tell you that he's also the only one that rose to the number 3 rank in 10,000 under Baca and Tanaka. And you can go and see, you can check his record. You could see what he spoke out against and what he didn't. You don't get to that top rank without a tap on the shoulder process. There's no test. He didn't get there with any test, any certifications, anything. And I'm sure he learned a lot while he was there. But what did he do while he was there? I'm the one that's looking to bring compassion, respect, and dignity. I've talked about it all along. I have the experience. I know what it feels like to be on the other side of the law enforcement spectrum. And that's why I bring 360-degree perspective to what the community and law enforcement needs. Thank you. I hope to earn your endorsement.
Thank you. And now Cecil Rhambo.
Thank you guys for this. This is a tremendous amount of work, and I understand that, and your patience is really, really, truly appreciated. Believe it or not, I'm the old man of the group. I used to be the young guy. And so I don't know where all the years went, but I can tell you, like Bob, I failed retirement twice already. I have many, many years of experience, not just in law enforcement, but also as a city administrator, a city manager, an assistant city manager. And you don't get offered those jobs just because, people just like you. You have to have experience and you have to have a track record for actually getting things done and working collaboratively. There's a reason that I have over 100 endorsements from people who are Democrats here in Los Angeles County and throughout the state. It's because those people believe that I should be the chief law enforcement officer for the millions, literally millions of constituents that they represent here in Los Angeles County. And my relationship doesn't begin with them tomorrow or after the election. My relationship began with most of them 20, 30 years ago. So with that, I come to you with the most experience. And you're not electing a sheriff. Again, you're electing a partner. And I want to be that partner here in Los Angeles County and be your sheriff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cara, I think you're up.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, Ingrid. Always so enthusiastic. Ingrid is actually, for anyone who needs someone to do phone banking, Ingrid is actually the queen of phone banking. We could all make 1 million calls. Ingrid gets on the phone and they go, oh yeah, I'll vote for your candidate. It's amazing. Anyway, gentlemen, it is a pleasure to see you all again. As you know, I saw you all on the SEER committee from LACDP, and we really have a bunch of good candidates here, folks. And you now have about 3 minutes to get your ballots if you haven't already got them all in. The balloting is over at 6:15. I think a lot of people have voted. I think from the hour that you all talked, I think people got a good sense of you. And as soon as the voting closes, they will send me the results. If you want to hang out for that, be happy.
This is Bruce. I'm awaiting my ballot
You should
by
have gotten
email.
it, Bruce. You should have gotten it. You were on the list. The Madrone Web, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope so. So right now, then, I want to bring up our past president. He was the president between my terms at one point. Alan Bale, attorney. He's also serves as our parliamentarian. And he is going to take over for our our club elections here. This is our annual meeting. And again, we want to really thank these sheriff candidates. Your responses were very thoughtful, and I wish you all the best of luck. Alan?
Thank you, Cara. Thanks to the candidates and everybody who's participated today, as well as those who have helped behind the scenes over this past year. So today what we're doing is looking to elect officers to serve on the board. And this should be pretty straightforward, but you never know. I don't believe that there's any opposition, but let's go through and what do you think? Do you want to introduce the people who have served over the last year? Why not?
Sure.
Yeah.
It'd be nice for the club to see our membership, you know.
Yeah, Cara has been president. Ingrid has been the VP of operations. Rad has been our political VP. Kelly has been our secretary. Susan, the treasurer. Mark, member at large. Julie, member at large. Connie, member at large. Lewis, member at large. And then the committee folks. Andrea, legislative action chair. And Ellen has been our elections outreach person, and Francis, our senior advocate.
We should mention Francis's upcoming birthday.
What? It's only 100.
That's a senior advocate.
Yes.
I would say that is a senior advocate, right?
And still amazingly very active.
Yep.
And,
very much.
Yes. Anyway, so the offices that we need a vote on, let's first have each person give a little spiel as to what they would like to do and how they will root out corruption. Cara, would you like to say a little something as to what second thoughts you may have?
Well, you know, for me, as you know, it's all about information, inclusivity. And with all of these candidate forums we have coming up, I mean, think about it. Congressional for Karen Bass's seat, Senate because Sidney Comlager is running for Congress instead, so she's giving up her Senate seat. We have Autumn Burke's seat in AD 61. We have Richard Bloom's seat in AD 51. These are all areas that our club members are part of, right? And we have CD 5, Paul Koretz's seat. We have CD 11, Mike Bonin's seat. We have the controller. We have the city attorney. Of course, we have the mayor. We have the board of supervisors, LACCD, the college board, the LAUSD. Yep. Oh my gosh, am I forgetting anything? I don't know.
Judges.
And of course, the judicial. Oh my gosh. So we are going to present all this to you. We are going to do it. We may have to have a few meetings a month. You know, we may have to pop one in on a Thursday night, 3 on a Sunday or Saturday, but we'll do it. We will get you the information. I pledge this as president. Thank you.
Thanks, Cara. And Rad, would you like to say a little bit about what you've been doing and or what you hope to do?
Yeah, thanks, Anna, and thanks, Cara. So I've been a member of West LA Dems for a couple years now. I was previously with the Bruin Dems, and I came here as part of the Legislative Affairs Committee. And then I have served as Vice President Political last year this year now, and will continue serving for one more year. I want to briefly say that it's been an honor to be part of this esteemed board, and I'm excited to continue in this position. I want to focus this year on the club's efforts to back important legislation in Sacramento. I think it's a unique year in California politics, not only because of the redistricting, but you know, I think a record number of elected officials are retiring, are moving districts, are representing different areas, are our new candidates are jumping onto the playing field at a record number as well. And I think things are changing, and that means that there will be different political priorities and different political results in Sacramento. And because of that, I think it's a especially important time for our club and other political clubs to play a role in making our voices heard. And I think that will be my goal this year. And Cara wanted me to give an example of what that might be. And I think I would be remiss not to mention my boss's SB 54 bills like that. In this case, the bill would ban basically all single-use plastics or non-recyclable plastics in California. If it were to pass, meritorious and bold legislation like that will change the way California operates, how its economy works, a greener economy, a more just economy, a place where other states and other and the country and in the world looks to for progress and for advancement. And I think we can play a part in that. So I guess that's where I want to go with this role, and I would love your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Rad. Thank you. And Ingrid, why should we select you to return as VP Operations when you've not put on a single event?
It pains me. It pains me that I have not been able to put on a great party. I think I've gotten rather good at it. And I have a great number of volunteers who follow me faithfully into the trenches of party giving. I hope that we can go back to live events, but in the meantime, I worked very closely with Cara to put on our virtual events, and I think we've done some really good ones. And as you have heard, there will be many, many virtual events coming up through the candidate forums. So I love working with Cara. I love working for the club. We have a wonderful club, and of course, my key goal in life is to get Democrats elected any which way. So I hope I can continue as the VP Operations and continue to support Democrats running and Democrats, keeping members and the public informed.
Thank you, Ingrid. Let's see, Kelly has been our secretary and may well continue on. Kelly, do you want to say a few words? A few words.
For the times when my video was live during the Q&A on this, it's because I'm the person who takes all the notes. My virtual background doesn't let you see them, and that I did a lot of them. I've been on here for and more pages all the way back to here we go. So I've taken like 8 pages of notes for this one, even though we're being recorded. Because there's certain legal mechanics that you have to do with an organization, and part of it is you have to prove that you are doing minutes for the meetings on a regular basis. We have to actually have these to present to prove that we're an organization that can have a bank account, for one thing. And so, Cara started this off with what's in our treasury, and here I am at the back end. I'm one of the supporting documents to prove that we can have one of those. In addition, I do some of the other mechanics that goes on with the back of this, and I participate. One of my backgrounds is in software, so I spend some time trying to post on some of our social media platforms, and from time to time putting out the e-letter, which is it's become so, people are getting so overwhelmed with the email that is coming to them that there are days when I wonder if we should be continue to be doing it. And then I will run into somebody in one of the meetings or at one of our events who says, "Why I live on those things." So we're back to doing that, and we're going to have to keep it up, especially with all the campaigns and all the offices that are coming up for these primaries and then into the fall. We have to get back. We have to actually hold every seat we've got in the House and Senate, and we need to get 2 more senators. So the 2 that have been stopping everything are irrelevant anymore. So I will shut up now. Yeah.
Thank you. We were.
Yes. And then Susan Blanchard, do you want to say a few words? Susan's been our treasurer.
And God
Not
bless
really,
Susan.
there's not a whole lot to say about being treasurer.
Yeah, there is, Susan. You do a great job and we really appreciate
Yep.
it.
The money
She
is
does all our
there.
filings as well.
The money is there and we know how much is there.
The money is there and you've got to keep track of it.
And we trust you with that money because,
Okay,
you know,
let's
we've
go,
heard
let's
of
go.
other
Come on.
treasurers.
Ron Galpin's in the wings, so let's get going.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you think, Cara? Do you want to?
I think we have 3 member at large that we're going to be voting on.
Okay.
2 of them, one is in Hawaii, the other is on the road right now, so they couldn't be on. But there is Mark Salzberg who might want to say a word or 2, and then we should get on.
Excellent.
Yeah, and see, and I'm going to check Election Buddy now to see what the results are.
So here's a word or 2. Now I'm done. I put out the Senate, competitive Senate election ratings. You should be getting that monthly on delivered by Facebook on our Facebook accounts, and kind of pitch in whenever something needs pitching in. That's our function as members at large. We don't have specific duties, but we are there as part of the team whenever we're needed. So that's what I do, and that's how I function on the board.
Great, thank you. And is Connie up again?
No, Connie, we're going to figure that one out. No,
We're
we have
figuring that out.
3 members at large, Alan, remember, that we elect. And we just said they're
Yes,
Julie
yes,
Goodman,
yes.
Joan Gallagher, and Mark Salzberg. They were listed. I published them in the e-letter. These were people who actually asked to run, that advised me they were running. And then Louis Watanabe has been our appointed member at large. He's moved out of LA, but until we do live, he can stay as appointed. And then, but Connie, of course, is on the board, and we'll figure it all out. There are some fabulous committees. Listen, it's almost time. I just got something from Election Buddy. They can hold it for another couple minutes, but then we have to close it. So those of you who haven't voted, like Ellen, you haven't voted yet. I'm just looking at the list. So otherwise it's gone, you know.
You're saying that I hadn't voted or that Ellen?
Ellen has not voted. Alan
Okay.
did vote. A lot of people didn't vote. Bruce, you opened it, you haven't voted. I'm looking. So I don't know.
Okay, so how should we do this?
I don't think I had a ballot, Cara.
I haven't gotten a ballot either.
So I mean, I can't vote without it. So, and I don't know who to vote for sheriff anyway. I would vote for all of us, but I don't have a ballot.
All of
to do
them,
it on.
great.
So,
well, it says you do have a ballot, so I can't. I have no control over this. I'm not the one who sends the ballots.
I thought the same thing, but I realized I use a different email for my, this is through the membership email, your official membership email, not necessarily the email you use the most often. So check all your emails.
okay, I'll look again then. Thanks.
Okay. Is there a motion to elect Cara as president, Rad as vice president, political vice president, Ingrid as vice president of operations, Kelly as secretary, Susan Blanchard as treasurer, Mark Salzberg as member at large, Julie Goodman as member at large, and Joan Gallagher as member at large. Is there a motion to elect them by acclamation?
I move to move all of those candidates to be advanced as our officers for the West LA Democratic Club.
I'll make a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Let us vote. All in favor, shall we just, if you know how to do that, raise your hand. You go to the reactions button at the bottom and then press raise hand.
Alan? I'll
Yes.
instruct the secretary to cast one vote for the entire slate by acclamation.
What?
You could ask since there's no opposition, you have the secretary cast one vote for the entire slate by acclamation.
Okay, is there a second to that? Well, actually, this is over.
Let's just do it.
Yeah, if there's no objection, why don't we clear the hands? And any opposition to the election by acclamation?
So moved.
Okay, I see none. The candidates have been elected by acclamation. Congratulations.
Okay, and thank you.
Hey.
Thank you all. Really happy.
Thank you very much.
And the announcement is such. We do not have the 60%. No one received the 60% that was needed for the club endorsement. I will say, though, that Robert Luna got the plurality with 45% of the vote. Well, not plurality, but so, but we have no endorsement from the club for sheriff. We have no consensus, I should say. Jeff Prang got 100% of the vote. So Jeff is our endorsed candidate for county assessor, and the bylaws amendment has passed also, 94.7% of the vote with the bylaws. So that is the official tally. I thank you all for being part of this vote, and thank you, sheriff's candidates again. It's so hard to make the choice, and I think all of you made a good argument for why you should be elected.
Yeah.
So thank you. And now it is my great pleasure finally to introduce, to close out our meeting, our current LA City Controller and candidate for California State Controller, Ron Galperin, a good friend, been a member of our club forever, a really good friend and a really excellent controller. So much information, just like Jeff. I mean, we really have good people, this last few terms. So take it away.
That is so nice of you. Thank you so much for your leadership, Cara. We are so lucky to have you, and Alan. And it's great to see so many familiar and wonderful faces on this Zoom call. I cannot wait until we get to do this in person again, and sooner the better, hopefully, with coronavirus hopefully passing. Wanted to just come by and say hi to all of you. As you know, I am now running for California State Controller. I'm actually the first citywide LGBTQ elected in the city of LA, as some of you may know. Also the first in my family to be born in the United States. And my dad was a Holocaust survivor, a refugee, and my parents came here for a better life. And thankfully they were able to achieve one. But for so many families, for so many individuals, it is a struggle each and every single day. And we as Democrats believe in making lives of people better and of making progressive change. And that's why I love this party. That's why I love what it is that you're doing. You could be doing so many things this evening, right? Could be watching Netflix. But here you are actually trying to create a better community. And that's what binds us together. The last 2 years have been especially tough, we know, with economic and food and housing insecurity, inadequate access to medical care, deep racial inequalities, an environment and a climate in peril. That's really of great concern to me, especially now with my husband being the parent of 29-month-old twins. We want them to see and to grow up in a more just world and in a world with a hospitable climate and environment. And how do we address all these challenges? And Part of how we do it is with better budgeting and better spending, but also transparency and accountability and effectiveness. And that's what I've done as controller for the city, as I think many of you know, really revolutionizing the office with transparency and open dashboards and data, audits, lots of tools to create a more equitable and more effective city. Some of the recent reports that we've done, which just to give you a brief overview, one is actually identifying 26 properties that we believe should be used sooner rather than later to accommodate those who are experiencing homelessness. 3 people a day are dying on our streets, overwhelmingly from drug addictions, and that is a travesty in LA. And we can and we should do much better. A number of audits looking at how we spend housing dollars and how we can get more for our money, how we can fix our sidewalks, how we can use data but protect privacy, how we can increase local investment and also increase the diversity of our bidders. And of course, a comprehensive COVID-19 resource hub, some of you may be familiar with it, as well as a report and a map that looks at diversity and at equity in each and every single one of our neighborhoods and how we can better deploy resources for more equity. And I'm very excited about this run for state controller because it's a job that I know well, but also serves on 78 boards and commissions, as some of you might know. Everything from the State Lands Commission, the Coastal Commission, CalPERS and CalSTRS, and some of the ones that are not as sexy, but terribly important, such as tax credit allocations and bond limit allocations, which make a huge difference for creating affordable housing. I'm proud to have the support of Betty Yee, of John Chung, many elected officials up and down the state, and would be honored to have the support, particularly of those who are delegates in our upcoming convention. And you can check out ronforcalifornia.com. Happy to answer any questions as well. And what a wonderful way to spend part of a Saturday afternoon and evening is with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. That's so sweet. So I guess, and unless anybody wants to come in and say anything, we can adjourn. But sometimes people like to debrief a little bit. If anyone like to, everyone's unmuted. So otherwise,
This is Mark. I just wanted to make sure that we recognize David Chang, who's running for judge.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought I recognized David Chang.
You did.
I did.
Hey,
Yeah.
I did. And
Waving at
Yeah, you
everybody.
did.
I
Greg
missed that
Good,
one. That's my fault.
Robert
in the
Pullen
beginning.
Miles, Mayor of Lawndale. I did.
Yeah, you did.
Someone's raising their hand.
They are?
Yeah.
Hi, Kara. Yes, this is Alex Morris. I'm Ron Galperin's campaign manager.
Oh.
I just wanted to let you know that if you'd like to volunteer on the campaign, you can reach out to me and I'll put my email in the chat. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I have an amazing team. I am so lucky.
Somebody, we can hear you. Okay, who raised their hand? There are 2 participants with their hands. Is that? I don't know who's raised their hands. I can't.
Tad Daly has his hand up.
Tad.
Thank you, Madam President. I just so glad to see you and hear you, Comptroller Galperin. And I think we almost unanimously adore you. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity. Do you want to speak at all about other candidates in the race and what kind of race it is statewide? And is the San Francisco City Controller running? Is it going to be LA versus San Francisco? Tell us what you know, please.
That's a great question. Actually, there is a candidate from San Francisco who actually is on the Board of Equalization. And there's also another candidate who is a council member from Monterey Park. But in some ways, it could turn into, for better or for worse, a little bit of Northern versus Southern California. There's also the Republican who's running for this. I'm the only one, however, who's going to be on the ballot that actually has the word controller in their ballot designation, which is really crucial. especially for admittedly a sort of low information race in some cases. I'd like to say everybody's thinking about the controller's race throughout California at this very moment, but that may not actually be altogether true. Really pleased to have a tremendous support, quite a number of members of Congress, also a growing number of legislators, labor, but it's going to be a hard-fought race, especially because of the other candidates. The one from Monterey Park has actually written herself $1 million check.
My goodness.
And willing to write herself even more. Apparently she has nearly unlimited funds with which to do that.
Wow.
And you can buy yourself a lot of advertising when you're willing to write yourself an unlimited check.
Yes.
So I don't unfortunately have that privilege. And
you have a reputation, and
so but it does take a lot to reach millions of voters. I have to say, interestingly enough, with COVID, we have been to pretty much every single county committee, region, you name it, which would have been really hard to do if you're driving from one place to another. And I'm looking forward to doing that once elected and once COVID is over. But it's a very interesting way to run a campaign in the virtual world that we're living in.
There's something in the chat, Ron, that Marcia Hanscom said that the State Lands Commission is leading efforts to shut down oil drilling off our coast, and the controller is a key person on that commission.
Absolutely. State Lands Commission is crucial to the issues of drilling, to the issues of mining, to also issues of water rights. And that's the State Lands Commission. And then there's also the state's Coastal Commission, which is very involved in these issues as well, particularly as it relates to drilling. And by the way, I'm not taking any oil money. And I'm looking forward to the just transition away from fossil fuels, so that we find a way for those people who are working in those industries to hopefully get green jobs, and for us to finally move away from that very old and polluting industry.
Dorothy Reich has a question.
Hello, Dorothy.
Wait, you're muted, Dorothy. Unmute yourself, Dorothy. Dorothy, unmute. Unmute.
There. I just wanted to say that let me mute my television that my boyfriend's watching. That Ron exposed so much in LA City being our controller. And I'm just really looking forward to having him get into the books of our state government and see what kind of revelations we have when he gets through with that, because we need to know where our money's going, and especially the cost of homeless housing that was outrageous, $700,000 a unit. So I think it's extremely important that we elect Ron and that we find out what's been happening with our tax dollars here in the state.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, by the way, for all the work that you have been doing for years. And it is, dare I say, my obsession to delve into these things. And I think it's really important for us as Democrats, because look, when we go to the voters and we ask for bond measures, for tax measures, we need to show them that the results are being achieved. And if we aren't able to show them, then a pox on us in some ways, because we're not going to be able to get them to step up next time around. And I want to make sure that we show that we can govern well, and that we use money well, and that we achieve results. And there are too many people suffering on our streets today, and needlessly so. And it's a combination of housing, of course, and mental health services and addiction services. But we have a lot of the resources. We just need to deploy them, I think, in a more effective
But once you find out where they're putting all the money they're stealing, maybe we can convert them to being used for the good of the people of the state. That would be good.
That is what my desire to do. But I have to say, look, there are wonderful people who work in government, and it's not often so much about stealing per se. What it is about is systems that are in place and bureaucracy that is in place that we often get in our own way a lot of the time. And how do we how do we clear away some of that bureaucracy, and how do we also create a framework for creating that housing that is much more simple. It's taking 3 to 6 years to do. When that's the case, it's going to become more expensive. And we in government have a role in helping to make it happen a lot more quickly.
Well, I think you will do the job. We're all rooting for you. We'll be there, Ron.
Thank you. Thank you. You can sign up at Ron for California, and we would love your help and spread the word, particularly to other delegates, because a very important vote is coming up on March the 5th. Really important.
We're going to, on March 5th is our convention, and it's so sad. Finally, it's here in Los Angeles again after, gosh, what, 10 years or something?
Yeah.
And it's virtual again, which I get. But we all of us delegates will be voting to endorse. This is an endorsing convention.
Exactly.
And I know a lot of us on the call here are going to be at that convention voting.
And
so
your
you've
votes
got us,
make a
Ron.
big difference. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
well, thanks everybody.
Wonderful to see you.
I think this has been a great meeting. I thank all of everybody, all the helpers, and we'll
Thanks,
see you.
Kara.
Oh, we love you, Kara.
Well, thanks, honey. I mean, we'll be seeing you
Yes,
again.
indeed
I
we
mean,
do. Indeed
there's
we
so
do.
many coming up. Okay, so see you
All right.
soon.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye, thank you.
Bye. Thank you all for coming.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Ryan. Welcome all you new people too. Bye, Cecil. Bye, everybody.